I'm Sacha King, Managing Director and Social Worker from 221 Mental Health Charity. Today we're going to be talking through evoking change in a young person and having conversations that really enhance the young person's ability to perceive and believe in that there is some hope around change for them. Even if they're not really ready to set that goal yet, it's really about having and pushing these conversations to explore the understanding of change and the possibility of change. We're going to talk about funneling, which is a strategy to use young people's own words to establish their meanings behind emotive words or challenges in their lives. We're going to talk about change talk, which is really asking questions around the possibility of change for that young person. And we're also going to use summarising statements. These are statements that bring up both the challenges and the goal for that young person and empower the young person to be able to see the possibility of change in their life. Before we move on to our process 3, which is evoking change, I just want to mention a couple of boundaries in these conversations. We're not being counsellors in this conversation. It's important to recognise these conversations are about now, being able for this person to play with the idea of change and setting a small goal. They're not about digging up why are you behaving like this, what is your underlying belief system. We don't want to play with that right now. It's not a part of this conversation. We also don't want to be comparing it to their traumas or their past or digging up past stuff, because if they bring that up now, it's not the right time to continue that conversation. So just be aware, in these conversations, we're going to keep it in the present. How are you doing right now? What things are impacting you? What has worked for you before that you could do now? What sort of things would you like support around? What could you imagine the possible benefits of this, rather than looking all the way back in their past and digging up some of that stuff. The other thing is that if you do dig up that stuff, you might not have the skills to be able to manage it. You might feel uncomfortable with it. And also sometimes it can be detrimental to do the wrong things around digging up trauma. So even if that person does tell you about their past trauma, which happens sometimes people tell you all sorts that you aren't ready for. When they do, just let them know that you're listening and you can listen. There's nothing you can do harmful in listening. And then just keep it in the present again when you talk about it. What support do you need around that right now? Or how does that impact you today? Or what can I do to support you in your day to day? So just keep it back in the present, and it's a really safe way to have these conversations. And it sets you some nice boundaries as well, because sometimes you feel like you're digging a bit of a hole of like more and more information to weigh up and to know what to do with. So bring it back to the present. Okay, process 3, evoking. So we only have process 3 and 4 to go. So this is really engaging in that change talk, really trying to get this person to weigh up all these things around what might be best for me. The first one we're going to talk about is funneling, and we're going to talk about change talk, and then a little bit about that summarising, which is what might have felt like some people when they were putting longer statements, reflective and affirmation statements together. It kind of sounds like a summary, but there's a couple of things that we do when we summarise. All right, first thing let's talk about is we're really now getting into this person's what they want to change and really trying to understand it. So funneling technique is a really nice, simple one that's a little bit like, instead of paraphrasing or instead of using a reflective statement, you can use this strategy. This strategy really simply uses words that young people say. And we're going to use the key emotional word in their sentence. So if a young person says, I'm just really angry about yesterday, what would be the key emotive word? Angry, yeah. Well, tell me about, what that anger feels like or why that anger came up. So we're going to actually ask them about what that word means for them and get them to explain it and explore it. Angry sometimes isn't the greatest example, because sometimes if you ask someone about their anger, it does re-elicit that anger. So if they say, I'm really angry about that thing that happened yesterday, also yesterday is a key emotive word in that sentence. And so you can say, hey, describe to me yesterday, or things like that. So it's actually using their language, their exact words that they used, and getting them to explain it, explore it, or expand on it. And it's working like a funnel. So as we explore, hey, tell me a bit more about yesterday, and then, do that, has those feelings come up any other time? And, we're really just funneling down what they actually mean by this sentence, because young people say these really big sentences. Oh, I'm just freaking out. Like, okay, that sounds like a lot, but what does freaking out mean? Can you explain a little bit more by what you mean by that? What does that look like? When does that happen? And so they say these words, but when we have emotive words, they mean different thing for every single person. If I say I'm stressed out, that probably feels really different to you being stressed out, and it's for really different reasons, so we can't assume we know what words mean. And young people don't know all the time what their own words mean. They just kind of associated a word with a feeling or a situation. So we can expand and explore or explain by saying expand on that, or let's explore that, or what does that mean? Explain to me what you mean by, or what did you mean by? Tell me more about, what has that been like? When does that happen? Things like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to make up a sentence that our young person says with a key emotive word. So let's have a think about our case studies and what they might say, and then we're going to try and funnel that down with maybe about 3 sentences or so, or 3 questions that we can do to explain, explore, expand on it. So we're going through these quite quickly, I know, but it's about learning the skills, and you can continue to practice them, and you can you even sit down, with your team, with the young person who you're having a little bit of challenges working out how do I elicit change talk with them and do this activity with those young people as well, or with your team, thinking about that young person as well. So you'll have access to all these resources afterwards. You can see how funneling is a really nice way for someone to feel like actually they really want to know what this means. And when they feel like that, the conversation can get deeper really quickly, and that connection can get stronger really quickly, and you can keep it really on track to talk about how they're feeling and what's going on for them. So really funneling it down, and then understanding the emotions and things going on for them. And as you are funneling, you're probably hearing a bit of change talk. Change talk might sound like, I wish I could change this, I want to do this, I want to be able to have more positive, I want to be able to look after myself, I want to be able to do this or that. I will, or the reasons are, or I'm weighing up, it will. It doesn't have to be positive either, so it might be, I want to, but I can't. There's no way I'm ever going to be able to do that. Even if they're saying there's no way I'm ever going to be able to have positive relationships. Actually, in their mind, there's this little hope that they would like to have positive relationships. Even right now, they have no belief in it. So even if it's negative, we want to really motivate them to have change talk. Because the more little neural pathways you have around this idea of healthy relationships, having a home, moving out of home, having independence, being able to look after yourself, the more flexible your thoughts are around. So we're going to really motivate people to think more and more about it. If your young person has possibly had trauma in their life, they might not be able to visualize themselves or their future, just because that is one of the effects of trauma. So what you might want to do is say, or imagine someone else in a similar situation. What advice would you give to them? What would be their first step? If this was your friend in your situation, how would you talk to them? Do you believe they would have the skills to be able to do this, and why? So if you externalise it a little bit for young people, sometimes it does make it easier for them to see the steps around change. But if this young person has the capacity to be able to have these conversations, you can ask them questions about themselves and them imagining their future. So some questions might be, what are some of the reasons you would like to change? What might be the benefits of this? How might you do that? What might be the very first step to do that? Do you think others will support you, or what do you think others will be proud of you to make this change? What might be the first step? How could this impact your life for the better? And really just having some conversations around this, pros, cons, just talking about this as a possibility and not leading them to just talk about the positives. because we do need to talk about those challenges as well. Those challenges are real. So really, we want to encourage this talk as much as possible. We're not going to practice change talk because it's pretty hard to do unless I made you all do role plays. So once we've sort of had this talk about change talk and this young person is weighing up everything around it, we are going to then summarise. And summarise doesn't mean this is the step that you're going to take. Summarise means I hear there's a few things you need to change, but you're really motivated to be able to get a job. I hear that right now you're feeling a little bit unsure about what to do around change, but you would like to change this in your life. So generally say the challenge and the goal that they have in that summary should be pretty short and concise, because the next step after that is setting our goal. So we're going to write a summary statement for the young person in our case study. So we need to say what is the challenges or changes that they are struggling with, and what is the goal in a way that they're going to connect with it. Well, we're on to our last stage, which is planning. And this is our last bit where we've said, hey, there's some things in the way of you achieving this big goal of, you know, getting a job or making friends, or it's really hard to make this huge change in your life. So let's set one tiny little thing that you can do that's going to be achievable. So we're going to do goal setting. Just to note, you need to make sure it's a single small goal. It has to be really specific. So if someone's goal was getting a job, what might be a specific first step to that?
Resume.
Yeah, writing a resume, and maybe that's something that could be a step. Could even be going to an appointment with a job support agency or something like that. It could be just going to a meeting at YouthWorks, or, you know, meeting a caseworker. You know, it could be just any small step depending on that person's supports around them and their capacity as well. So just thinking about, when you're thinking about your goal, really small, really specific. And for young people, timely. What do you think our time limit should be on these goals? I think pretty short. We want it to be quite small and short, and these young people that we're talking about, you're working with them pretty often, aren't they? So maybe we want to make it...
Reachable.
Sorry?
With a small goal, it's got to be reachable.
Yeah.
Move on to another one.
Yeah, that's right. We want to move on because we want them to have that positive reinforcement in their thoughts. So maybe a couple of weeks we want it to be done in, and we want it to be a little bit flexible as well. So if it's going to an appointment, we want to check that they have the right supports around that. If it's talking to someone or making a new relationship, or maybe just trying something new, maybe if they don't do it on the day that you planned, then you can check in and you can do it the next day or something like that. So you're just having a little bit of flexibility, but not letting them have so much flexibility they're just going to avoid it or procrastinate it. So, and making sure they don't feel like it's another authoritarian thing, but they've come up with this goal. So we're going to use SMART goals and really think about what might be the first little step for this young person. So have a chat about what might be a goal for your young person using your SMART guidelines. Let's work out how that's going to happen, what that's going to look like. And you can see how small they are, making sure if they quite easily achieve that goal, still celebrate and then increase the goal. So, you know, go through these processes again and again. Also, when you are doing your goal setting, you can use your reflection and affirmation statements as well to help them through that process. So, you've filled out all of your sheet now, and now your young person is set their goal, they're feeling good, and they really feel empowered, and that is really what we want. We want that young person to feel empowered and that goal to be sustainable because they came up with it and they actually believe they can do it through these conversations. So the idea of these worksheets is that you can take them back to your offices, so you can take them home with you, but you can also keep practicing these skills throughout your conversations, not just with the people you work with, but every single person in life. I was talking about young people today, but obviously motivational interviewing is used with adults, it's used in counselling, it's used in brief intervention, it's used all of the time. So use these skills in all your conversations to make more deeper and meaningful conversations. Also, just want to say that you all have the skills to do this and have these sorts of conversations and have therapeutic conversations. Intuitively, we are great conversationalists. We want to be connected to people. So let that happen and trust in yourself and your abilities because you got it. I hope these skills have given you some new ideas around evoking change in a young person and having conversations around change. From this section, I would like you to fill out the last pieces of the worksheet. They are funneling and summarising. So funneling statements, I want you to write one sentence that has an emotive word in it, such as anger or frustrated or stressing or anything that's a really strong word in their sentence, and break down 3 questions that will funnel that word to help you understand the meaning. For where it says summarise, I want you to write a summarising statement that has in one sentence both the challenge for the young person as well as their goal, recognising that it always is a way up when we are talking about summarising someone's motivation to change. Also, we can move on to SMART goals once you've done those statements, and you can write down one small specific goal for this person that is really specific and it's realistic for that person. It needs to be something that they have individual control over and that is going to be managed and supported. And then once you've got this little goal, you've completed your motivational interviewing steps, and that young person can go off and complete their goal, and you can all celebrate together.